Hi, Destiny. Thank you so much for joining us today on Premier Gospel. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor. It's truly an honor to be here.
Could you just tell us about your latest single, which I think is Universo? Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. You said that very well too, by the way.
Oh, thank you. I've been doing this for so long now because I'm not Spanish or anything. So I just
Really?
no.
Well, there you go. You've obviously learned. Time has seasoned you.
Yes.
That's awesome. My latest single, Mi Universo, that is probably my favorite single that I've ever released. I've released quite a few. I've even released some with some features. But there's something about that one that was just, it came from a very vulnerable place. It came from a place where you don't necessarily hide behind all of the music and the music video and the this and the that. And it was just super raw and super real. And I feel like I identify most with that song because that's the style of music that I love. So being able to sing that style for the first time was really fun for me. It was really, really, really awesome. My amazing friend Javi actually wrote that song in its entirety. He is a phenomenal writer, and he wrote that song. We normally like try and have sessions together, but he's like, I have to send you this song. It's flowing. It just happened. And I'm like, all right, cool, let's hear it. And he sent it to me, and I don't even think I changed a word. I'm like, this song is phenomenal. So
That's awesome. So as well as that, could you tell me about any upcoming singles, EPs, or maybe an album that you might have coming out soon?
sure. So I'm actually releasing, you are the first to know other than my inside
Getting the
team.
exclusive. Getting my
This
mug ready. That's the tea, sis.
I have some tea for you, okay? So I have a new single coming out actually this month.
That's awesome.
So I haven't promoted it yet. I kind of like to, just the way I promote it, I like to promote like a week before. That's kind of how I like to do things. So you will be seeing something on my feed next week, if not next Friday, for sure. I have been talking about doing an EP with my producer. An album, I'm not sure if I'm ready for an album yet. I'm kind of liking the low commitment of just doing singles and enjoying them for a little while and kind of bopping with them and, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
But for sure, I am talking about an EP with my producer.
Ooh, that's exciting. So can you tell me a little bit about your upbringing and growing up in the church, and then also just how you discovered your passion for music as well?
Sure. So I grew up in a super strict Pentecostal home where, you had to have the super long hair, you had to wear a skirt, you couldn't wear earrings, no makeup. And it was, I guess as a kid, you don't really know that God accepts you anyway. So you see everyone around you and you kind of become a product of your environment. And so I think it was super easy to just kind of be like, all right, just going through the motions. I'm just going to church until I got a little older. And I'm like, something feels a little off because I went to an American church for the first time,
Okay.
not a Hispanic Pentecostal strict church. I went to an American church.
Yeah.
And in American church, people had tattoos and people wore pants. And I'm like, I like it.
It's like
here.
a revelation. It's like, oh,
Yeah,
I can wear trousers.
Okay. Exactly. I'm like, what is happening? Women are wearing jeans. That was mind-blowing for me. So yeah, I went through a period where I decided to actually step away from the church, and I guess you can call it backsliding is what the proper term for it would be, I guess. I just really, I wanted to kind of do my own thing. I wanted to venture out and try things I was never able to try and, meet people I was never in the same room with. And that opened a lot of doors for me musically, for sure. I was in 3 wedding bands at once, at the same time. And I was just doing all kinds of oldies and this and that. And I just felt like, man, this is just still not fulfilling this need in me. This void just feels empty still. Nothing is filling it. I am singing 5 days a week. I had 2 days off a week. And I was also a nanny at that time. So I was a nanny during the day and a wedding singer / club bar lounge singer by night. And it was like, this whole like superwoman thing. And I still felt unhappy. And so I had been singing at my school as a worship leader in 9th grade, all the way up until I graduated, senior in high school. And then that's when I kind of did my own thing after high school. My mom invited me to a church service that I really did not want to attend. And I ended up going. My old principal, which was one of the pastors at the church, she's like, why don't you just join us? Like, we're here. We have worship practice on Thursday nights. And I was kind of not in the church. So I'm like, yeah, you can miss me with that. I'm not going to go to church right now. But thank you for the invite. But something tugged at me and I ended up going. And that's how I became a full-time worship pastor.
Wow, that's incredible. So obviously you've only been releasing solo music for literally a year. Literally. So I found you via Spotify actually, and I added you to the show playlist, and like,
really,
yeah, you get played out across the UK.
Oh my gosh, what a gift.
But yeah, I was so intrigued because I heard an interview you did on a podcast recently, and you were saying you've only been releasing music as a solo artist for literally a year, and I was like, mind blown. So what pushed you to make that decision to just kind of venture out and become a solo artist, and what has that journey been like for you?
The journey has been incredible. God has shown up more times than I can count. I guess what pushed that was that I was running from this calling for so long that I feel like eventually God is like, I'm going to snatch you, child. Like, are you kidding me right now? And so I was running and running and running and running. And so I had a producer reach out to me, my incredible producer. His name is Tim Bro. That's his producer name, but his name is Tim. And Tim reached out to me on Instagram. And he's like, I'd love to work with you sometime. And I'm sure you heard this on the other podcast, but I literally was like, this could have happened at any other time.
Yeah.
Why not sooner? Why during a global pandemic? Why at a time where I can't get to a studio?
Yeah.
And I feel like God was just telling me, because now you're ready. Because now you've been through exactly what I've needed you to go through to realize that it's still all about me. Because I feel like I don't care how spiritual you are, okay? This might be an unpopular opinion, but I don't care if you're a worship pastor, worship leader, Christian artist. There is definitely that part of you that kind of at some point decides, I've arrived. Like, I'm great. I'm awesome. Like, I'm really good. Like, why don't people listen to my music? Why don't people like me? Why don't people invite me to things? And that's definitely the flesh, and that's something that we have to kind of fight, because we're in a battle between spirit and flesh continually, all day, every day. That's literally how we live, And I feel like I got to that point after high school, and I was the only worship leader, and I was the only this, and I could do this. And then God was like, you need to humble yourself, because there are girls probably in the UK that can sing circles around me for days.
I mean,
and I was like,
you are very talented.
Thank you. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful that people enjoy what God has given me. And I'm honored that I'm able to give it back to him. Because honestly, at one point, that was not my mindset. But I can definitely say that God has helped me transition into this being about him. And I think that's when God opens the doors.
Yeah, that's true. And I feel like that's something that rings true even for like my own personal journey, like in media and stuff. Just kind of like how when you take yourself out of the equation, God will allow you to do what you want to do, but it's giving glory to him. So like, tell me how I landed like a radio show, and it's a Christian radio show. So everything's just about glorifying God. So
absolutely. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. And even like going on y'all's Instagram and just seeing like, you guys have a really big following in the UK, and that's phenomenal. The same way you kind of did a little research on me and listened to my podcast, I definitely did a little research, because you want to know who you're talking to. Obviously, you want to, that's the fun part of doing this is finding out, man, the way God's name will be glorified literally around the world is mind-blowing to me. Like I told my husband, I'm meeting with this girl named Hannah, from Premier Gospel, and she's based in the UK. He's like, what?
Yeah.
I'm like, I know. It's crazy to just see how no matter the distance or wherever you are, like God's name will still be glorified.
Amen. Indeed. And I just think it's, especially like even you releasing music in a pandemic and with food for such a time as this, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just interesting how like you don't necessarily need to go out and like go back to back and travel and tour and do all of this stuff, which is great obviously, but you can literally just like make music from right where you are, and it can impact globally.
It's so true. And that is such a good point, because my husband and I were talking about this yesterday. He's like, all right, so because we're thinking about getting like a booking company involved with kind of what we're doing, because my husband's my manager. So he's like, I'm going to start reaching out to some booking companies. Do you want to travel? Do you want to start singing? Do you want to do live shows? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. But he was like, isn't this a crazy time from like back then when you had to put out records? You had to sell these records, or labels or booking companies, whatever, wouldn't even look your way. Now you can just release one single. You can buy a mic. You can do a call via Zoom with your producer who's in another. Like, I was recording music when I still lived in New York City. I now am based in Houston, Texas, but I lived in Queens.
Mm.
My producer and I had to Zoom for my first 2 singles and somehow make the mic work and get a program called Loopback that my husband installed. And we had to like make it work however we could, you know, and just to see even how the music world has evolved during this time is insane.
So the next thing I wanted to talk to you about was you working as you were worship director in your church in Texas. And can you just tell us a bit what that experience is like, and also how it compares to releasing solo music?
Sure. So I'm actually still the worship director at my church in New York. I'm one of the worship leaders at my church here in Texas, but they kind of go hand in hand, because you're still leading people into a title doesn't matter. You're still leading people and ushering them into the presence of the Lord through music. Very different. You are able to, I think, be more yourself when you're leading. And I just feel like you can allow God to flow through you and put the words in your heart that you're going to sing out and share with people. There's something so intimate about ushering people into God's presence. It doesn't compare at all to being a solo artist. I think a solo artist is fun, for sure. I think I'm able to be more creative as a solo artist because I can wear the fun outfits and I can do a pink video and I can do like all this fun stuff. But yeah. But being a worship leader, I feel like it truly humbles you. And there's something about leading, again, God's people into his presence that's incomparable. I would never be able to describe that to any, with any other feeling. Just being able to do what God has asked you to do through music, especially through something that you love. It's really awesome.
Yeah, I always feel like I kind of had this revelation like a couple of years ago, and it kind of really changed my perspective on like worship music and gospel music, was that when you think about it, worshiping God and worship music and gospel music and singing praises to God, that's the one thing we can give him that where we're not asking for anything or we're not taking, we're giving.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that there's like a real kind of humility that comes with that.
That's so good.
And like a submission, and I feel like that's so powerful. So it's definitely.
I agree. I think we're on the same page, girl.
Definitely. So out of all of the songs that you've released and videos, which one is your favorite?
Which one is my favorite? I would have to honestly say it's a tie. We're talking about videos, right?
Or singles. Both.
Or singles.
Yeah.
Okay, video-wise, I would have to say it's either Eléctrico or Adiós Goodbye.
Okay.
Those 2 videos were so fun for me. Nada was like my first full-scale music video where I had like a person doing my makeup and I had someone styling me and I had this and that was super fun. But if I was nervous, and I think that kind of came out in my energy, not in the music video, but during the time of the recording. It was long. We had started at like 4 or 5. We ended at like 2 a.m. for nada.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a long day. I took the day off. I did that. But I would say Eléctrico, Ingrid made that song so fun for me. I loved, well, she's my friend, so I feel like there was that chemistry already as friends. But Adios Goodbye, I had my girl gang. I had, my mom is in that music video. My mother-in-law is in that music video. That was a really fun one for me.
I love that. That's so awesome. And can I just say, I really need one of those denim jackets in the Electrico video. I love them.
Oh my God.
You know, the little lightning bolt? I was like, I see you. Girl.
That's an awesome guy, actually, based in Texas. His Instagram is @Throne Studio.
Okay.
He is phenomenal, and he reached out, or I think Ingrid reached out to him. I can't remember how it worked out, but she's like, "Do you want jackets?" I'm like, "Is that a joke?" Like, everyone wants jackets. That makes you awesome.
Exactly.
A jacket just makes everything better.
Exactly. And then every time you roll together, you can wear matching jackets.
Exactly.
Almost like pink ladies, but you know, the ladies or something like that.
Our own version.
Exactly.
Yeah, pink ladies, that's it.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I actually did want to talk about your collaboration with Ingrid Rosario. Can you tell me how that all came together, and also what it's like to work with someone who is so well respected within the Latin gospel community?
Sure. So Ingrid and I's relationship started 2 years ago. My husband and I, my father-in-law, my late father-in-law, and my mother-in-law run a church, or pastors at a church in New York, in Queens. And we have a mutual friend that's Ingrid's friend that literally called us and was like, I have this woman named Ingrid Rosario. I'm not sure if anyone's ever heard of her. And so my family, my husband and my father-in-law, mother-in-law have never heard of her, but I grew up in a Spanish Pentecostal church.
Gosh, yeah.
I'm like, Ingrid Rosario. Okay. They're like, we want her to come tour your building because she has a live recording come up and we would love for her to meet you. And so she came. She was so down to earth, so awesome. We hit it off. That was super fun. We ended up saying, yeah, she's going to use our location. She's going to do her live recording there. It was all established. She invited Andrew and I, my husband, to dinner with her and her husband. And we had dinner. She was awesome. Again, she was super down to earth. She was super fun. She was goofy. She was silly. She was exactly what I am. So we got along very well. And then at the end of the night, she's like, would you want to be on my upcoming recording that I'm recording at your church? And I'm like, what? And she's like, would you like to feature on it and do one of the songs with me?
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like,
is that Aviva Miento?
Crazy.
Is that the?
Huh?
Is that Aviva Miento?
Yes, Aviva Miento.
Oh, see, I remembered. I remember.
Yes, that's so good. I love that. Yes. So I actually wrote that song in English. It got translated and kind of fluffed, and we added some words with my friend Javi. So we technically co-wrote that song, and it was on Ingrid's album, and I had the privilege of singing it with her. So that relationship was born. We became friends naturally after all of that happened. And I was doing something funky, and I'm like, I would love for Ingrid to be part of it. So I spoke to my producer. He's like, you should talk to her. She's your friend. I asked her. She automatically said yes. She gave me what week was free on her calendar where we could go record. My friends, Javi, Vito, and I wrote the song. And it was awesome. The experience was awesome. She made it awesome. I was not feeling the song at first.
Really?
Realistically. No, I was not. I was not feeling it. I was like, I don't know about this song. I don't know if it's going to do well. I'm not really liking it. It's so different than what I've done before. And she's like, Destiny, this is an amazing song. And we're going to kill it. Like, it's going to be awesome. I'm like, I'm really not sure, but all right, let's try it. So we did it, and still super unconvinced. I put it out, and then I started to love it. And then I saw how people started to love it. And then the music video was just super fun. But Ingrid is humble. It doesn't matter how many platforms she's stood on. It doesn't matter how many millions of people she's reached. It doesn't matter how many millions of plays and monthly listeners she has. Ingrid is humble. Ingrid loves people. Somebody can stop Ingrid at Costco or at Target, and she'll be like, hi, how are you? Like, she'll talk to them like she knows them forever. And, that's kind of an example of who I want to be as an artist, because you never want people to feel like you don't think they're worth it when they're streaming your music, they're buying your albums, they're making you who you are, and then I feel like not appreciating them is not cool, And Ingrid is not that way at all. She loves people. She's awesome.
I love that. I feel like I want to meet her now.
Yes, she's awesome. You would love to meet her. Maybe I'll set something up.
That would be awesome. I would really appreciate that.
Yeah.
So could you just tell me a bit about your songwriting process? Because I know you mentioned it. What is that like from start to finish for you? Do you start in English and then finish and then translate it over to Spanish? How does that work for you?
Yeah, so Amor, 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 which is my first single that I released May 2020, I wrote that in English. The melody was totally different. The key was different. The sound of it was different, but the words were similar. I did write that in English. We then translated it to Spanish, and again, fluffed it, added some words. Some things don't translate exactly right. So we definitely had to work a little bit with making it cohesive and sound good. Other than that, my team and I find like a similar beat to a style that I like. So this is no shocker. I listen to top 40 music that I love, that I like to replicate, because I just feel like the Christian world doesn't have that. The Christian world has a lot of like worship and a lot of that stuff, which is awesome.
Elevation.
I mean, exactly. Like,
it's a different. I feel like your music is opening up that, like, it's opening up gospel music and Christian music, and people will be singing it and they'll be like, oh yeah, this is so catchy, blah, 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 and they don't even know that they're praising God. So,
exactly.
Yeah, that's
so actually, quick detour story about that. I have a friend who works at an Urban Outfitters in Manhattan, and he's not Christian, like, at all, not even close. And he records a video and sends it to me on Instagram the other day that he's playing my music at an Urban Outfitters in the middle of Manhattan, which is probably one of the most secular places in all of the world. I can very easily say, trust me, because I lived there. And he's like, my coworkers are jamming to your music. I'm like, you don't even know you're praising God, because I don't even know if he speaks Spanish, but my music is Spanish, so he speaks English, and he's like, your music is so good. Everybody's singing it. I'm like, praise the Lord. Honestly, that's so awesome. But touching on that, I listen to top 40 stuff that I really like. Eléctrico is like Rain on Me by Lady Gaga and Ariana. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, it's similar. I'm like, that was the point. So I'm glad that it is. Because maybe instead of listening to Rain on Me, you might want to listen to Eléctrico, and it has a more positive message, uplifting. We're talking about God here. Like, definitely different than the Lady Gaga and Ariana version. Mi Universo was super inspired by ETA by Justin Bieber. I loved that guitar vibe. I loved that solo vocal that just is focused on the guitar and the vocal and the lyrics. Which, by the way, I love ETA by Justin Bieber. I think that Justin Bieber's new album was super awesome, but it's inspiring. It's super inspiring. And so that's kind of my writing process. We listen to something that's similar to a style that I like. And then we kind of go from there.
That's awesome. So could you just kind of tell me what's next for Destiny Marko? The brand, the person, the mum, the wife, the worship director. Who would you like to work with, and what would you like to achieve in the future? This is a platform to kind of put out your biggest dreams and see what comes back.
Man, honestly, I am obsessed. Not in a creepy way, just like, I love her voice. I love Blanca.
Okay.
Blanca is one of my biggest inspirations. I would say she's killing it in the Spanish world right now. Like, she is killing it. Her style, I would say, kind of would be in the category of where I'm kind of trying to go. She's putting out bangers, literally amazing music, all to glorify the Lord. And her creative team is phenomenal because her videos are so sick, super awesome. So I would love to work with Blanca someday. I think that would be so dope. I think that would be awesome. But what's next for Destiny Marko is just continue to put out singles, continue to lead worship, because leading worship is truly my heart. And then I feel like I'm able to be the creative part of me by being a solo artist. My son is my most prized possession. So being able to do what I love and also still be like a full-time mom is really, really awesome. And my husband is so supportive. My mom is so supportive. So just continuing doing what I'm doing, what I did during a pandemic, and just kind of seeing where it goes. I would love to go to the UK and perform somewhere. That would be
at Premier Gospel.
Listen, you let me know when, and I'm there.
We'll make it happen. We will make it happen.
Okay, so
you have my word.
We have each other's word.
Exactly.
So I actually am on a buddy pass because my friend is a flight attendant.
Awesome.
And he has me on a buddy pass, so I don't pay for my flights. I just pay for like the taxes or whatever.
I love that.
So I'm like, if this is what God is doing for me to be able to go places, I don't want to charge people to have me come to their events. I don't want to charge people to have me come to their churches. I want to be able to do what God has given me, to do without charging people for that. I want to just share the gospel. That's what I want to do. So if I can do that at no cost to people and I can bless people's ministries, that would be a blessing to me.
So away from music, like you said, you're married and you have your baby. So can you just tell me a little bit about like how you met your husband, and also what it's like raising a family, and especially being like a young mum in today's world?
Sure. Today's world. Golly.
We'd be here all day.
Oh yeah, we could be here all day for sure. My husband and I met, so I was talking to you about the school that I led worship at. So the principal at the school was actually his mom, or is his mom. So when I ended up going to that event that my mom invited me to, that I was kind of like, I don't want to be here. The principal was one of the pastors. Yeah. And was my husband's mom.
Oh my gosh.
So my husband and I had zero interest in each other at all. And when I told you I kind of started working, doing worship full time, I actually started getting employed by the church a couple of months after that initial going back. And I started working there. I started doing youth stuff. I was the youth director. And I wasn't married, so I was kind of doing that on my own. And then Andrew, who wasn't my husband at the time, would help me out with youth. He taught me how to use Photoshop. He was teaching me how to use a bunch of stuff to make flyers at the church, because that was another one of my job titles. I was making like all of the flyers and social media and stuff like that. And so we got really close. We became really good friends. And he was just an awesome person. He was super full of knowledge and wanted to just share it with me. So I was like, man, this is a really awesome friend. So the transition from us deciding we were interested in each other to getting engaged to getting married was very quick. Within 6 months, we were married after we decided initially that we loved each other. So a year after our wedding, which was actually a month after our 1-year anniversary, we had our son, Colton. Colton is so amazing. He's an amazing kid. So something that I really haven't spoken about, like on any interviews or really to anyone other than my family, and church and, some friends or whatever, but was the fact that Colton was stuck in an apartment for a year during the pandemic. He had just turned 1 and all throughout becoming 2 years old. And a couple of months ago, he was actually placed on the spectrum of autism. that I think a lot of young moms don't expect. I think even me being more open to sharing that is something that I want to start, because I think it hits you like a train. I think it just kind of, you don't expect it, you don't see it coming. But we decided to go ahead and move to Texas because everything in New York was still shut down. Everything was still closed. And we're like, how can we, the doctor's suggesting him being around kids, being in a play group, going, doing activities. How can we do that in New York City? Everything is closed. So we decided to uproot our family and move 1,600 miles for our son.
That's incredible.
And I just want to let any young parent out there know, that's kind of why I'm sharing this story, is that obviously God has to give you the green light in anything that you're thinking about doing at all, ever. And my husband and I prayed a ton before we just decided, hey, we're just moving to Texas. And my husband said, God, you have to make the doors open like wide. And my husband specifically said, I'm sure there's going to be like 10 doors in a row. They all have to open, one after the other, after the other. So just picture like going into some kind of a maze and feeling lost, but then you see a door and you open it and you see another door and it opens and you see another door. And literally they just keep opening and you realize, okay, I'm going the right way. That's literally what God did to us with this move to Houston. And the improvement that we have seen in our son has been phenomenal. He was nonverbal. He made no eye contact. He wasn't saying anything. He was barely eating. He was drinking like just milk, like stuff that's scary for a new time mom, especially someone who's young, a young mom and young parents. To now he eats 3 times a day. He is starting to repeat everything that we say. He hears us walk into the room. He immediately looks over and like wants to see who just came in. You're carrying him. He looks back at you like, who's carrying me? So obviously we're taking him to, not obviously, but we're starting to do occupational therapy and speech therapy. Between that and like the move, what we've seen God do has been incredible. But I have to say, if it weren't for our son, I don't know if my husband and I would have ever made this move. And the doors that God is opening here in Texas, for me musically, but also for us as a family, has been phenomenal. And the advice I have for any young mom or any young parent listening is that if God says to go, you have to take that leap of faith. You have to trust him, because God is going to do something greater than you could ever imagine. Right now, you're probably confused. You're probably wondering, why is life going this way? Why is God putting me through A, B, and C? But trust me, the next thing that God has for you is going to blow your mind. And I think that that's what has happened with me and my family. And to see what God has done in our lives and for our son has been in pure our faith to God. Because if we had no faith, we would still be in New York. Our son would still be technically considered as on the spectrum. And now the people who evaluate him are literally saying, like, there's no way this kid is on the spectrum. There's no way. Like at all. And we're like, we agree.
In itself.
Exactly. It's God.
Incredible.
So that's kind of my journey as a parent and as wife.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's really an incredible story. I feel like it will help a lot of people. Why did you choose Texas? Like, why that state? What was it? Was there a specific reason?
We actually have a lot of friends who have become family here. Yeah.
Okay, that
like
makes
Ingrid lives in Texas, so we're able to see her more often. I have a really close friend named Eunice Rodriguez. Eunice and I sing together. I lead at her church. She's a worship pastor there. She literally lives 10 minutes from me. So like she was over 2 nights ago. We had worship night last night. So like I'm still able to serve. And all of my friends here have kids that are Colton's age. Colton got invited to his first Easter party, his Easter egg hunt. He got invited to his first birthday party while we've been here. So we've only been here for about 4 months, but to see the incredible growth of our family and our son has been phenomenal.
That's incredible. So you are a young Christian like myself. I think we're actually like near the same age group, actually. Like mid 25.
I'm 20. I'm 26. I'm going to be 27.
Okay. Yeah. So similar age. So what do you think is the biggest challenge facing our generation today, being people of faith?
Social media is the biggest killer of any young person in this generation. Social media is scary.
Yeah.
But a person of faith or not, it sucks you in, girl. Because I can start like looking at stuff and like I'm like, what is happening with this world? But I would definitely say that that's like the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Is social media, because most people just believe anything that they hear on Instagram or Facebook. And I just feel like our generation needs to pray more, seek God more, make time for God. Like, don't just say, I'm going to pray for 5 minutes, but then I'm going to be on Instagram for 14 hours.
It's so true.
Like, girl, there's a very big difference. And I'm not going to say that I don't fail. I fail.
Sometimes, like, it's so easy to be like, oh, that person has it so much easier than me. Or, like, people could look at you and say, oh, it's all right for Destiny. She just started releasing music in the pandemic. And look at how successful she is. But really, people
like, yeah, my life
you've gone on to get there. And
I'm like,
go through personally.
It's so true. I'm like, and so many people don't believe me when I say, like, we're dealing with my son possibly being autistic. I'm dealing with having uprooted my entire life, all of my family, my entire 26 years of life, having lived in New York, just coming to a totally different state. Like, people literally think, oh, it's so easy. I'm like, it's easy because God has made it easy, but it's not easy because it's easy. Does that make sense, or does that sound crazy?
It makes perfect sense. It's so easy for people to look and to say, oh, I want X, Y, and Z that Destiny has or that Hannah has, but they don't know what it's taken to get to this point. It's a highlight reel. People show the best parts of their lives. People don't show.
Yes, that's so good, Hannah.
People don't show the mental health struggle. People don't share, their personal stuff that's going on in their life.
You said it perfectly. That was such a good point. It's literally a highlight reel. Like, people literally compare their lives, and I'm guilty of it. I'm guilty of looking at my favorite influencer and saying, man, that looks so easy for her. Like, that looks so simple for her. But the reality is, she's probably going through something. He's probably going through something. Like, it's not as easy as it seems, you know? Exactly. And, like, you're right about the whole, like, insecurity thing. I posted my favorite sneakers yesterday on my story that I finally just got. But I didn't tell y'all that I had no makeup on yesterday, and I was, like, looking at every imperfection in my face and being so insecure and, like, walking around my house. Like, what highlighted my day was those sneakers that I posted, but not the insecurity that I had been feeling all day from not wearing makeup and having passed by a couple of mirrors and being like, oh my gosh, my skin, I'm breaking out, I'm so stressed, all of this stuff. But that's the reality of the life we're living. Like, people only post the highlights of their life. You're so right about that.
It's just, you just said it perfectly. Like, we're all human, and I think it's good for people to see people who are like yourself. You're building a platform to just hear that reassurance that we're all just human at the end of the day. There's no one's perfect, only God. So absolutely. That's definitely a big thing facing our generation. And what do you think our generation can do to kind of stay equipped and to be wise in this generation?
Focus on God. I'm serious. I know that sounds super spiritual, but, like, people around you will try and pull you every direction, will try and make you feel like whatever everyone else is doing is what you should be doing. You should be doing what God is asking you to do. Let's start there. Let's start with, I'll use myself as an example. God saying, it's time for you to go somewhere else. It's time for you to go to another state and do something there and plant seeds there and talk to people there and meet people there. And you're like, absolutely not. That is not what I meant to do. Why? Because everyone else is telling you New York is such a desirable place to live, because everyone is asking you, how how could you move out of New York to move to Texas? Like, really? Yeah, because if that's what God asks me to do, that's what I'm going to do, period. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely.
Seek God, this generation, and whoever's listening, seek the Lord, because his plan is so much greater than our plan.
Indeed.
So much greater.
So do you have any advice for how people can learn to trust God when they don't understand? And then number 2, how they can learn to stay submitted in their calling or what God's called them to, and to be patient in that process? Because I feel like that's something you've nearly mastered, considering everything you've been through and where God's bringing you out of and into now in this new season. I just feel like you're really reaping the blessings of everything that you've sowed and the sacrifices you've made. So, yeah.
Amen. I think not staying hung up on your past and on your mistakes is a really big one for me, because based on my past, this is not where I should be. Based on my past, I have no right to tell anyone to follow God. Based on who I was, I shouldn't be an advocate for telling people to focus on who God is and what he's saying. And I could probably be made fun of by some of the people in my past for who I've become. But I think that makes you the most qualified when you've been through something that you can say, I shouldn't be here, but I am. Seeking counsel is a really big one. Having accountability is a huge one for me. My husband was my accountability partner. As weird as that may sound, because you don't really want to tell your spouse everything. But if you have nothing to hide and you're truly living a biblical marriage, your husband or wife should be your accountability partner. They should have the freedom to tell you what you're doing. I don't think is godly. It's not godlike. It doesn't resemble the image of the Lord. I don't think that you should be doing that. And I think that when my husband and I first got together, and again, another unpopular opinion, but I was in these wedding bands, and I was singing on Sundays, but then every other weekend or every weekend I was singing at a lounge or a club in Manhattan. And my husband was like, is this really like the life that God is asking you to live? Like, lead worship on a Sunday. And I wasn't like doing anything wrong. I wasn't participating in anything else that anyone was doing, but I was part of it because I was there. Okay. So my husband goes, what if somebody posts a video and there's like someone blasted out of their mind, like super drunk and like acting a fool, and you're in the background of that video? How does that make your testimony look to other people?
My mum always said to me, you're known by association.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And I was mad at first because I had been doing wedding bands and like gigs since I was 16. So I haven't been doing them now for 3 years. So that was almost 10 years of my life. Mm-hmm. I'm like, this is crazy. You're making me give up a part of me that I love. Like, and he's like, but God will open doors for you to do it in the right way. And to see where I am today is mind blowing, because had someone told me that 3 years ago, I would have said, absolutely not. The only way for me to make music is for me to be in a wedding band. Mm. That's not true. And I don't resent doing that. That was an awesome time of my life. I learned so much about myself vocally. I learned so much about myself as a person. I learned so much about how much I could do vocally and like how far I could take my voice. And like, that was awesome. I think that was like exercising my voice. But at a certain point, you just kind of have to say, all right, I'm done. I'm kind of putting this in my past. I'm done here. God has something greater for me. And I think when I did that is when God started to open those doors. But having that accountability, had I gotten mad at my husband when he was telling me the truth, we would be in a very different place. Sorry, I have a piece of hair that keeps hitting my nose. But accountability, and not feeling like your past defines you. Those would be the two things I would say.
Yeah. So can you tell us 3 things that people might be surprised to know about you as you're a relatively new artist?
3 things that people would be surprised to know about me. 1 is that before I started a singing career, I actually started an acting career. I've done a couple of commercials, mostly like toothpaste commercials. I did a Colgate commercial, a Crest commercial, and I think when I was like 12, I did like a Flintstones chewable vitamins commercial.
Oh my gosh.
But I actually singing was not my first passion. When I first discovered that I was passionate about something creative, it was absolutely acting, not singing at all. Something else about me that would surprise people, I would say, is that my music and my videos are like super exciting and like all this stuff. I don't dress like my music videos. I dress super chill. I like wearing oversized t-shirts, sneakers, and a cap most times. But I spice it up for my music videos a little bit. I think that would surprise people because people always like associate me with what they see in my videos.
Okay.
So they're like, your hair always looks perfect. Your makeup is always on point. I'm like, first of all, I get my makeup done every time I do a music video. Second of all, I don't dress like that every day. Another thing, probably the fact that I have a bunch of tattoos. A lot of people don't know that about me because I most of the time like will cover them.
I saw the one in the arm.
Yeah, I have like half sleeve and like it goes up.
Oh
and
my
like,
god! Oh, so you've got like a sleeve.
I have basically like a half sleeve. Yeah.
Awesome.
So that I guess that would probably be shocking to people, right?
How many tattoos do you have?
20 something, 24,
Oh,
25,
wow.
something like that. I just kind of have like a bunch of small, like I can pull this out a little bit, like dainty.
Yeah.
They're down here, up here, like just a bunch of like little dainty tattoos.
I love that. So who are your favorite mainstream gospel artists and maybe some of your favorite worship songs as well?
Sure. So Tasha Cobbs is my all-time favorite gospel worshiper. She is phenomenal. I had the pleasure of singing background vocals for her latest album.
Wow.
Royalty, which was so fun. I got a random DM on Instagram and I was asked if I wanted to do it. My husband's like, is that legit? I'm like, I have no idea.
That's awesome. Oh my god.
Apparently it was legit because I was part of it, which was really awesome.
Wow.
But just to get to see her heart and to see how she loves people and loves to worship the Lord was super awesome. And I would say one of my favorite gospel songs right now is Royalty. That was on her album. I think that those lyrics, she says a lyric that says, you made me on purpose and I am your favorite. And she just repeats that. And I'm like, when you sit there and think that God truly like knitted you in your mother's womb and that he made you on purpose, like you're not here by accident. I feel like so many people say, why am I here? I'm here by accident. Like, why did God ever create me? You are not here by accident. You are here on purpose because the King of Kings who created this entire world, spoke it into existence, created you. I think that is mind-blowing to me every time I think of it. And it's such a beautiful reminder that we are fearfully and wonderfully made when we don't feel like we are. And actually that's one of the first things that I got tattooed on my arm was because I am a super insecure person. I'm just being real. I'm being vulnerable. Like I struggle with insecurity, and I have an awesome husband who literally says, stop, you are beautiful. You're made in God's image, but more than that, you are actually beautiful. And he's just so, sweet to me. But I feel like knowing your worth and that song Royalty, it really reminds me of my worth. So I encourage anyone who's listening to this right now would go ahead and stream that song. It's super awesome, super empowering.
I love that. What are some of your favorite Bible verses?
Well, honestly, Jeremiah 29:11, whose isn't, right? And definitely Psalms 139:14, for sure. That is, I've loved that scripture since I was a kid, and I didn't know why, because you don't really have insecurities as a kid. You kind of grow up, and that's when the insecurities kick in. But I thought that the image of God, like I picture like an old lady on like a rocking chair, like knitting a beautiful blanket. And I don't picture God as an old lady, but like I picture that image of like God literally sitting there and taking his time on each piece that he's making, which is each one of us. When it says, I was created in my mother's womb, you knew me, you created me. I literally think of God literally sitting there, putting all, like a little workshop, putting everything together, and then standing you up nice and tall right there and saying, you're beautiful. I'm on to the next beautiful creation. And like, that blows my mind. I don't know why. Like, he chose you, Hannah. He chose me. That's mind blowing. Like,
It is.
I don't know.
It really is. No, it's true. And I feel like, I don't know, I feel like that image is like in my head now.
Isn't it crazy
like,
though?
how intricate and how deeply thought out everything is. And,
that's,
you know, and it's just mind blowing. Yeah. And
my mom always said, like, this is how she said, like, she always says this, but not even a leaf hanging on a tree falls off of the tree if it's not God's mighty will.
Wow.
Because he's orchestrated everything that happens. And when I, like, growing up hearing that, I would just be like, oh, you're so annoying. Why do you keep saying that? And she was kind of trying to explain to me, like, everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
And if God is allowing something, trust him. If there's an accident on the highway and you're late to that event, trust him, because you could have been the one dead. You could have been the one struck by that car. You could have been the one hit. You could have been like the I don't know, a casualty of something that's not even your fault, something that you're just caught in the middle of. And that's so good to me that my mom taught me that, because that's how I think now. Like, something happens and I'm like, I'm late. I knew I was on time. Something happened for a reason. And I believe in whatever God is trying to do here, you know?
Very true. Very, very true. So that's all my questions. Is there anything you would like to share with our listeners, or anything you'd like to say?
I would like to say thank you for supporting me. Thank you for listening to my music. Thank you for streaming it for whoever's listening. Thank you if you're about to stream it. Thank you if you're about to become a Destiny Marko supporter. That is a beautiful thing to me. I'm so grateful to know that people, that my music actually resonates with some people, and I'm grateful for that. So thank you in advance for becoming a supporter, and I'm excited to release some really cool new music this year. So just stay tuned for what's to come.
That's amazing. And where can people find you on social?
So on Instagram, you can find me at Destiny, Destiny, Marko, Marko, music. So at Destiny Marko Music. You can find me on Facebook at the same name. On YouTube, Destiny Marko Music. You can pretty much find me on Destiny Marko Music on anything. TikTok, I'm silly on TikTok. I sing sometimes. I do silly videos. So, but yeah, you can pretty much find me on everything as Destiny Marko Music.
Awesome. And your music is on all streaming platforms, I assume?
Streaming platforms. The most popular streaming platform for my music personally is Spotify. But I'm also on iTunes, Apple Music, Deezer, CD Baby, all that fun stuff.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you very much for joining us.
Of course, Hannah. Thank you so much for having me.